The night over Black Hollow Valley, Wyoming, had been quiet enough to hear the wind moving through the pine trees. Deputy Ethan Cole preferred nights like that. Quiet meant no drunk drivers. No highway accidents. No ranchers shooting at coyotes because they swore something bigger had been stalking their livestock again. Just silence. He sat inside his cruiser on a dirt overlook above the valley, sipping coffee that tasted burned and staring at the stars through the windshield while the radio hissed softly beside him. The sky was perfectly clear. Then something tore across it. Ethan straightened instantly. At first it looked like a meteor. A streak of orange fire cutting through the darkness far too fast. But meteors did not change direction. This thing did. The burning object curved sharply downward, trailing a stream of blue-white sparks behind it like molten metal spilling across the sky. The sound arrived a second later. Not thunder. Not an explosion. A scream. A deep metallic tearing noise that rolled across the mountains hard enough to shake the cruiser. The coffee cup tipped from Ethan's hand. Jesus. The object dropped behind the northern ridge. Then the valley exploded with light. A shockwave slammed into the overlook. Trees bent violently. Dust blasted across the road. The cruiser rocked sideways on its suspension. And then everything went silent again. Ethan grabbed the radio. "Dispatch, this is Deputy Cole. I've got an impact north of Black Hollow Ridge. Massive fireball. Possible aircraft down." Static crackled. Then, "Copy that, Unit 12. State Patrol already en route." Ethan was already starting the engine. The dirt road twisted down through the valley, bouncing the cruiser hard enough to rattle his teeth. Smoke climbed into the sky ahead of him in a thick black column lit from underneath by flickering blue fire. Blue. Not orange. Not normal. By the time Ethan reached the ridge line, other vehicles were arriving. State troopers. Fire crews. 2 black military trucks with no markings. Men were already shouting. Floodlights swept across the valley below. And Ethan stopped breathing for a second when he saw the thing buried in the earth. It was enormous. At least the length of a football field. Half of it had plowed deep into the valley floor, carving a trench through dirt and shattered pine trees. Sections of dark metallic hull stuck out from the crater at impossible angles, glowing faintly beneath layers of smoke and ash. It was not an airplane. It did not even resemble one. The surface looked smooth in some places and almost liquid in others, as if the metal itself were still moving slowly beneath the heat. Strange pale symbols pulsed across the hull. Not painted. Glowing. Ethan heard one of the firefighters whisper, "What the hell is that thing?" Nobody answered. The soldiers arriving at the perimeter carried rifles. Real rifles. Not the kind usually brought to a crash scene. A woman in dark military fatigues pushed past Ethan and started down the slope toward the wreck. "Ma'am," someone shouted. "Containment team isn't here yet." She ignored them. Tall, focused, cold expression. The patch on her shoulder read, "Captain Maya Reyes." Ethan watched her descend carefully toward the smoking wreckage while everyone else stayed back. The valley smelled wrong. Burned metal mixed with something strangely sweet underneath it. Like flowers after rain. Captain Reyes stopped near a torn opening in the ship's hull. Something inside moved. Several soldiers immediately raised their weapons. "Movement," someone yelled. Ethan felt his pulse spike. For a moment nothing happened. Then a hand slowly appeared from the darkness inside the wreck. Not human. Too long. Too thin. 4 silver-blue fingers curled carefully around the edge of the broken metal. And then a face emerged. The creature was humanoid. But only barely. Pale blue skin. Large black eyes reflecting the firelight. A narrow face streaked with dark blood. It looked terrified. Not dangerous. Terrified. The being stared at the rifles pointed toward it and froze completely. Behind it, more shapes moved inside the wreck. Small shapes. Children. Captain Reyes looked at the soldiers. "Lower your weapons," she said quietly. Nobody moved. Then one of the small figures inside the wreck began crying. The sound echoed softly through the burning valley. And everything changed. The crying stopped every soldier in the valley cold. Not because it was loud. Because it sounded so painfully familiar. A frightened child sounded the same in every species. Captain Maya Reyes slowly lowered herself to one knee near the edge of the crater, keeping her hands visible. The rifles behind her remained aimed at the wreck. She could feel it. Feel the tension pulling tight across the valley like wire ready to snap. Inside the broken hull, shadows shifted nervously. There were more of them than she had first realized. At least a dozen shapes pressed tightly together in the darkness. Hiding. The injured blue figure near the opening looked back toward them and spoke rapidly in a language Maya could not understand. Soft syllables. Quick. Urgent. The others quieted immediately. Maya studied the being carefully. Female maybe. Tall and thin with blood running down one side of her neck from a cut near the temple. The silver-blue skin shimmered faintly under the firelight, almost reflective in places. But it was the eyes that held Maya still. Fear. Pure fear. Not aggression. Not calculation. Survival fear. The kind people carried after seeing something terrible. A soldier behind Maya spoke nervously into his radio. Command, we have confirmed biological entities emerging from the craft. The alien flinched at the sound instantly. Several more frightened cries came from deeper inside the ship. Maya raised one hand slowly without turning around. No sudden movements, she said. Nobody argued. Even the soldiers sounded uncertain now. The alien woman watched Maya carefully. Then very slowly she touched her own chest. Sira. Her voice sounded rough and strained as if speaking itself hurt. Maya pointed to herself. Maya. The alien blinked. Maya. Close enough. Something moved beside the alien woman. A smaller figure stepped out from behind her leg. A child. The entire valley seemed to inhale at once. The child could not have been older than 7 or 8 by human standards. Smaller. Round-faced. Wrapped in a torn silver fabric that looked partially burned along one side. The child's enormous dark eyes reflected the flames around the crater. Unlike the adults, the child was not staring at the weapons. The child was staring at Maya. Curious. The alien woman, Sira, immediately pulled the child closer protectively, speaking sharply under her breath. The child ignored her. Slowly, cautiously, the little blue figure stepped forward. One of the soldiers behind Maya whispered, "Oh my God." Maya could hear boots shifting nervously in the dirt. One bad move. One frightened trigger pull. And this valley would become a massacre. The child stopped only a few feet away from her. Close enough now for Maya to see tiny trembling movements in those small hands. The child was afraid too, but trying not to show it. Maya swallowed carefully. The kind of place designed by people who expected the end of the world eventually and wanted somewhere to hide when it arrived. Now it housed 43 extraterrestrial refugees. The transformation had happened fast. Medical stations filled old research rooms. Armed guards stood outside sealed corridors. Portable floodlights turned gray military hallways into harsh rivers of white light. And everywhere inside the underground complex, humans whispered. Maya Reyes had not slept in nearly 30 hours. She stood behind a reinforced observation window watching doctors work on one of the injured aliens while exhaustion pressed behind her eyes like needles. Nothing about their biology made complete sense. Their blood carried metallic properties. Their nervous systems reacted unpredictably to human medication. Bone structures shifted slightly under stress scans as if designed to absorb impact differently. But close enough to human that the similarities felt unsettling. Dr. Elias Mercer loved it. "Do you understand what this means?" he asked for the 4th time in 20 minutes. The translator specialist looked barely held together. Wrinkled clothes. Messy hair. Coffee stain on his collar. But his eyes burned with excitement. "It means we are not alone," Maya answered tiredly. "No," Mercer said quietly. "It means somebody out there evolved almost parallel to us. That should be statistically impossible." Maya glanced through the glass again. The child sat in the corner of the room wrapped in a thermal blanket, watching everything silently. The child had not let Sira out of sight once. Neither had Maya. There was something deeply unsettling about the fear those refugees carried. Not panic. Expectation. Like people who had already seen the worst thing imaginable once before and knew exactly how quickly it could happen again. A heavy security door opened behind them. 2 armed officers entered escorting Sira carefully into the adjacent communication room. She walked slowly but upright despite the injuries. Proud. Controlled. Maya followed immediately. The room had been prepared carefully. No weapons visible. Soft lighting. Open space. Mercer sat at the center table beside a small machine connected to several glowing screens. The device recovered from the wreck. Alien technology. It looked almost alive. Silver patterns moved beneath its surface slowly like flowing water. Mercer smiled nervously as Sira entered. "This is either going to change history," he muttered, "or explode in our faces." Maya crossed her arms. Encouraging. The translator device emitted a low pulse. Then a voice. Broken at first. Distorted. Language adapting. Sira froze. Mercer nearly stopped breathing. The machine pulsed again. Communication possible? The silence afterward felt enormous. Maya slowly sat down across from Sira. For several long seconds neither spoke. Then Sira touched her chest carefully. Sira. The translator processed. My designation. Sira. Mercer made a sound somewhere between laughter and disbelief. Maya leaned forward slowly. Maya Reyes. The machine translated. Sira repeated the name softly. Then her expression changed. The fear returned immediately. She pointed upward. Toward the ceiling. Toward space. The Voran. The translator hesitated. Then, hunters. The room went still. Maya kept her voice calm. Who are they? Sira stared down at the table for several seconds before answering. When she spoke again, the translator struggled to keep up. Empire, military civilization, expansion species. Images suddenly flashed across the translator screens. Not intentional. Memories. Recordings maybe. Maya's stomach tightened. Burning cities. Massive black warships hanging over alien worlds. Crowds running beneath blue fire falling from the sky. Bodies. Entire oceans glowing with orbital bombardment. Mercer whispered, "Oh God." Sira kept speaking. Our world. Aware. Peaceful. The machine translated carefully. We believed diplomacy was strength. More images. Tall silver towers collapsing under bombardment. Alien civilians fleeing through smoke. Children crying. Maya felt cold. The Voran demanded surrender, the translator continued. Resources. Labor. Obedience. Sira's voice weakened slightly. We refused. The next image filled the room completely. An entire planet burning from orbit. Maya stopped breathing. The oceans themselves glowed red. The translator spoke softly into the silence. Elwire burned for 3 rotations. Nobody moved. Sira lowered her eyes. Few escaped. Mercer slowly removed his glasses. How many survived? The translator hesitated. Then answered. 43. Maya felt her chest tighten. 43. Not refugees. Remnants. Sira looked directly at Maya now. The Voran hunt survivors, the translator continued. They erase all resistance. They erase memory. They erase hope. The room seemed smaller suddenly. Heavier. Maya asked the question quietly. How long have they been chasing you? Sira answered immediately. 12 human years. Silence again. Then alarms exploded across the facility. Red emergency lights flashed overhead. A security officer burst into the room. Captain? Maya stood instantly. What happened? The officer looked pale. Deep Space Monitoring just picked up 3 unidentified objects entering the outer solar system. The room froze. The officer swallowed hard. They're heading directly toward Earth. The emergency summit began 42 minutes later. Every major government on Earth joined. Presidents, prime ministers, military chiefs, intelligence directors. Hundreds of faces filled the massive curved screens inside Strategic Command beneath Geneva. Some looked frightened. Others looked angry. Most looked exhausted already. Maya Reyes stood near the back wall beside Dr. Mercer while security personnel moved constantly through the room carrying tablets and updated tactical reports. At the center platform stood Admiral Nathan Hale, commander of Earth Orbital Defense. Gray-haired, sharp-eyed, completely calm. The kind of calm people practiced only after years spent preparing for disasters they hoped would never happen. A projection of the incoming objects rotated slowly above the conference floor. 3 ships. Huge. Even from incomplete scans, their size dwarfed anything humanity possessed. Admiral Hale spoke without hesitation. At current velocity, the unidentified vessels will reach lunar orbit in approximately 53 hours. The room erupted instantly. Questions. Arguments. Shouting. Can we communicate with them? What weapons capability are we looking at? Can the orbital platform stop those things? Do we even know if they're hostile? Maya glanced toward Sira standing quietly near the far wall under military supervision. The alien refugee watched the screens with the expression of someone recognizing an old nightmare. Admiral Hale raised one hand. The room quieted. We have compared their signatures to the refugee vessel technology, he said. The similarities are conclusive. Nobody needed clarification. The hunters had found them. A European defense minister leaned forward sharply. Then we hand the refugees over. The room shifted immediately. Maya felt anger rise like heat in her chest. The minister continued. We are discussing the survival of our species. If these refugees brought hostile forces to Earth, they didn't ask to crash here, Maya interrupted. Several heads turned toward her. The minister frowned. And with respect, Captain Reyes, sentiment cannot guide military policy. Maya stared at him coldly. Neither can cowardice. The room exploded again. President Elena Navarro of the United Earth Coalition finally spoke from the central screen. Enough. Silence spread reluctantly. Navarro was small, silver-haired, and carried herself with terrifying precision. When she spoke, people listened. What are our actual odds? She asked. All eyes turned toward Admiral Hale. The old commander looked at the tactical projection for a long moment before answering. Poor. The honesty hit harder than panic would have. Hale expanded another display. Human military assets appeared beside the incoming alien ships. The comparison looked absurd. Earth had 4 operational orbital defense platforms, 2 combat-capable deep space vessels, dozens of retrofitted satellites never tested in real combat. The incoming ships outweighed the entire human orbital fleet several times over. One of the Asian coalition ministers spoke quietly. So we cannot win. Hale answered carefully. I did not say that. But. The admiral folded his hands behind his back. But if those ships are only an advance force, then direct military victory becomes statistically unlikely. The room darkened emotionally after that. People began calculating. Maya could almost see it happening behind their eyes. Population numbers, risk assessments, survival percentages. And at the center of those calculations stood 43 terrified refugees hiding underground beneath Raven Mountain. A North American senator spoke next. What exactly happens if we refuse surrender? Nobody answered immediately. Then Sierra stepped forward unexpectedly. Several security personnel tensed. The translator device around her wrist pulsed softly. The Voran do not negotiate, it translated. They destroy resistance completely. The room listened in total silence. Sierra continued. They will burn cities first. To create fear. Images flashed across the tactical displays again automatically from her device. Burning worlds. Dead skies. Falling ships. They believe fear prevents rebellion. One politician looked visibly shaken. Another leaned toward his microphone slowly. How many civilizations have stopped them? The translator processed. Then answered. None. The silence afterward felt crushing. Finally the same European minister spoke again. If surrender prevents billions of deaths, then morally we may have no choice. Maya stepped forward before anyone else could answer. No. The single word cut through the chamber sharply. The minister frowned. You would risk the planet for 43 aliens? Maya looked toward the observation window overlooking the refugee quarters. Toward the frightened child sitting beside Sierra earlier. Toward people who had already lost everything once. Then she looked back at the room. If we hand over innocent people because we're afraid, she said quietly, then we already lost before the first shot is fired. Nobody spoke. President Navarro studied Maya for several long seconds. Then another alarm suddenly echoed through Strategic Command. An operations officer turned pale while reading his screen. Madam President? Everyone looked toward him. The officer swallowed hard. The alien ships just accelerated. The tactical projection updated instantly. The 3 enemy vessels surged forward through the darkness toward Earth. And a transmission request appeared across every military network on the planet simultaneously. The transmission arrived on every system simultaneously. Military satellites, civilian broadcast, emergency frequencies, private communication networks. Phones vibrated across the planet. Televisions flickered. Car radios cut to static. Then the voice began. Cold, mechanical, absolutely emotionless. This world is now under military observation by the Voran Dominion. Every conversation inside Strategic Command stopped instantly. The translation carried no accent, no distortion, no uncertainty. Whoever sent it understood human language perfectly. The massive tactical screens shifted automatically. One of the alien ships appeared in close-range orbital imagery for the first time. The room collectively froze. The vessel looked less like a spacecraft and more like a floating fortress. Dark metallic armor covered its surface in layered segments that moved slowly like overlapping scales. Blue energy pulsed beneath the hull in veins of light large enough to be seen from thousands of kilometers away. Weapons batteries rotated outward. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. The voice continued. You are harboring property of the Voran Dominion. Maya saw Sira close her eyes briefly. Not surprise. Recognition. The voice spoke again. You will surrender the surviving Lyrathai refugees immediately. Pause. Then. Failure to comply will result in planetary correction. Several political leaders began speaking at once. What does that mean? Planetary correction? Admiral Hale answered quietly before anyone else could. It means extermination. The transmission continued. You possess insufficient military capability to resist. You possess insufficient technological advancement to survive conflict. You have 52 Earth hours to comply. The screen shifted, now showing Earth itself. A targeting grid slowly spread across the planet. Cities highlighted one after another. Tokyo, London, Sao Paulo, New York, Cairo. Every major population center marked calmly in red. We recommend cooperation. The transmission ended. No dramatic cutoff. No threat-filled music. Just silence. Which somehow made it worse. Inside Strategic Command, nobody spoke for several long seconds. Then chaos erupted. Arguments exploded across the chamber. They mapped every military satellite we have. How long have they been studying us? We cannot fight that. Get civilians underground immediately. One representative simply removed his glasses and stared blankly at the tactical screens. Maya looked toward Sira. The alien refugee stood perfectly still beneath the flashing red emergency lights. Like someone reliving history. President Navarro finally rose from her chair. Enough. The room quieted slowly. The president's face looked pale now, but her voice remained controlled. Admiral Hale. Worst-case scenario. The old commander answered immediately. If the enemy fleet attacks at full capability, current projections estimate catastrophic infrastructure collapse within the first 6 hours. A silence followed. Then, casualty estimates? Hale hesitated for the first time all night. Potentially billions. Nobody moved after that. The weight of the number settled across the room like concrete. Billions. 443 refugees. Maya could see the calculations returning behind people's eyes again. Fear changing shape. Becoming temptation. One council member finally said what others were already thinking. We cannot sacrifice humanity for aliens we met 3 days ago. Several voices quietly agreed. Maya felt fury rising again. Before she could speak, Sira suddenly stepped forward. The guards shifted immediately. But the alien woman ignored them. Her silver-blue eyes moved slowly across the room. The translator on her wrist activated softly. We understand. The room fell silent again. Sira continued. My people have seen this decision before. Pain flickered briefly across her face. Many worlds choose surrender. Some choose resistance. Her eyes lowered slightly. The dead are the same either way. Maya stared at her. Sira was offering herself up. Offering all of them. To save Earth. The realization hit the room hard. President Navarro spoke carefully. If we surrender you, would they leave? Sira answered immediately. No. The translator voice remained flat and terrible. The Voron erase witnesses. Another silence. Heavier this time. Because everyone understood now. There was no safe option. Only different kinds of disaster. An operations officer suddenly looked up from his console sharply. Madam President? Navarro turned. The officer swallowed hard. Long-range scanners just detected additional gravitational signatures. The tactical display updated instantly. Not 3 ships anymore. 9 more contacts appeared behind the first group. The room collectively stopped breathing. 12 enemy warships now moved through the darkness toward Earth. And they were accelerating. Earth did not sleep after the ultimatum. It prepared. Across every continent, cities dimmed under emergency power restrictions while military aircraft crossed the skies non-stop above them. Highways jammed with evacuation convoys. Naval fleets repositioned toward strategic coastlines even though everyone understood oceans would mean nothing against orbital bombardment. The entire planet moved with the terrible energy of people trying to outrun a storm already overhead. Inside Raven Mountain, the atmosphere had changed completely. The refugees were no longer prisoners. They were advisors. Massive holographic projections filled the underground command center while human engineers worked beside Lyrathai survivors around the clock. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Sira no longer looked merely frightened. Now she looked focused. Dangerously focused. A rotating image of a Voron warship hovered above the central tactical table while dozens of military analysts studied it intensely. Dr. Mercer pointed toward glowing sections along the vessel's spine. These energy channels keep repeating at regular intervals. Sira nodded immediately. Thermal dispersal systems. The translator processed carefully. The Voron reactors generate excessive heat during sustained combat. Admiral Hale narrowed his eyes. A weakness. Sira hesitated. A limitation. The room leaned closer anyway. She touched the projection. Sections of the ship illuminated. If reactor pressure exceeds containment thresholds, the translator continued, the internal lattice destabilizes. Mercer blinked. You mean it can overload? Yes. The room became very quiet. One military engineer frowned. If they have that vulnerability, why hasn't anyone exploited it before? Sira's expression darkened slightly. Because nobody survives long enough. That ended the optimism quickly. Nearby screens displayed updated comparisons between Earth's military capability and the approaching fleet. The numbers remained horrifying. 12 Voron warships. Against a civilization that had barely established permanent lunar infrastructure. Humanity was trying to fight a galactic empire using experimental orbital platforms and modified mining satellites. And yet, no one in the room had stopped working. Maya Reyes noticed that most. Fear remained everywhere. But so did determination. Human engineers argued with alien scientists over reactor mathematics. Military planners exchanged tactical simulations with species they could barely pronounce. Refugee children slept wrapped in donated blankets beside armed soldiers who now guarded them like family. Somewhere in the middle of the impossible situation, Earth had quietly made its choice. Not surrender. Resistance. Maya entered one of the lower hangar bays where technicians swarmed around a partially dismantled orbital shuttle. Captain Arun Malik looked up from beneath the craft. You came to see humanity's last terrible idea? Maya crossed her arms. That depends. How terrible? Malik grinned tiredly. Extremely. He pointed toward the shuttle's exposed interior. Mounted inside were 3 massive experimental rail cannons originally designed for asteroid mining operations. Not weapons. Until now. We can't penetrate Voron armor directly, Malik explained. But if Sira's reactor analysis is correct. Maya understood immediately. You're targeting the thermal systems. Exactly. Malik wiped grease from his hands. We hit enough dispersal channels simultaneously, their own reactors start cooking them alive from the inside. Maya looked at the small shuttle. You're sending this thing against one of those battleships? Malik shrugged. It only needs one shot. Behind them, workers welded armor plating onto civilian cargo craft while others loaded missiles into retrofitted transport vessels. Humanity was weaponizing everything it had. Not because the odds improved. Because there was nothing else left to do. An alarm suddenly echoed through the hangar. Orbital update. Everyone froze instinctively. A technician checked the nearest display. Then exhaled shakily. They stopped at the edge of lunar orbit. Maya immediately headed back toward command. When she entered the tactical chamber again, the main display showed the Voron fleet hanging silently near the moon like dark metallic predators. Watching. Waiting. 12 massive warships against the stars. President Navarro appeared on the central screen. Public response? An intelligence officer answered carefully. Mixed. Footage began appearing across the display walls. Riots in several cities. Crowds demanding surrender. Others demanding resistance. Then different footage. Human civilians donating blood for refugee medical wards. Construction workers volunteering for orbital defense crews. Children drawing pictures for Lyrathai survivors inside shelters. One image held on screen longer than the others. The small blue child from the crash site sitting beside a human girl in a refugee center. Drawing stars together. The room grew quiet. Admiral Hale finally spoke. The Voron expect panic. Maya looked toward the giant enemy fleet above the moon. They're getting it. Hale nodded once. Yes. Then his expression hardened. But they're also getting something else. The old admiral touched the tactical display. Human defense positions illuminated around Earth one by one. Orbital platforms. Missile satellites. Hidden nuclear silos. Defense fleets. A line forming around the planet. Humanity's line. And for the first time since the nightmare began, Maya realized something important. Earth was no longer preparing to survive. Earth was preparing to fight. The battle began at 4:17 Universal Time coordinated. No declaration. No warning. The Voron fleet moved first. 12 warships descended from lunar orbit in perfect formation, their enormous hulls eclipsing stars as they accelerated toward Earth. Then the first city disappeared. The orbital strike hit Jakarta. A single blue beam lanced downward from space so bright it turned night into artificial daylight across half the Pacific. For one terrible second the city remained visible beneath the light. Then it vanished inside an expanding sphere of white fire. Shockwaves rolled across the ocean. Emergency broadcasts exploded worldwide instantly. People screamed in underground shelters. Air raid sirens howled across continents. Every military network on Earth activated simultaneously. Inside Strategic Command, Admiral Hale's voice thundered across the chamber. All defense platforms engage immediately. Earth answered. Hundreds of missiles erupted upward through the atmosphere. Orbital rail cannons fired from hidden platforms above the Atlantic. Laser batteries ignited across lunar defense stations. Entire skies filled with streaks of fire climbing toward the descending fleet. For the first time in human history, Earth fought a war against the stars. Maya Reyes gripped the tactical railing as explosions bloomed across orbital displays overhead. One human defense platform disappeared instantly under concentrated Voron fire. 2,300 personnel gone in less than a second. But another platform scored a hit. A Voron destroyer tilted sharply as kinetic rounds tore through sections of its outer armor. The command center erupted. We damaged one. Target integrity dropping. Reactor output destabilizing. Then the damaged ship fired back. The defense platform vanished in blue light. Celebration died immediately. The enemy fleet continued descending. Relentless. Unstoppable. Maya forced herself to look toward the casualty reports scrolling across nearby screens. Tokyo. Nairobi. Vancouver. Berlin. More strikes. More dead. The Voron were targeting infrastructure deliberately. Communication hubs. Power grids. Transportation centers. Not random destruction. Systematic collapse. Exactly like Sierra warned. An operations officer shouted suddenly. Unknown vessel leaving atmosphere. The tactical screens shifted. Captain Arun Malik's improvised strike shuttle launched from a hidden desert base in Nevada, climbing violently toward orbit while debris and missiles streaked around it. The tiny human craft looked microscopic beside the Voron fleet. Maya grabbed her headset. Malik, command advises immediate retreat. Your vector is exposed. Static crackled. Then Malik's voice answered calmly. If the reactors overload the way Sierra predicted, we only need one opening. A second voice cut in. Sir. She stood beside the tactical display watching the battle unfold with pale intensity. The ventral thermal channels, she said quickly. Target beneath the forward armor plates. Malik laughed softly through static. Copy that. No pressure. His shuttle accelerated harder. Straight toward the largest Voron cruiser. The enemy ship immediately detected him. Blue weapons batteries rotated downward. Maya's stomach tightened. He's dead, someone whispered nearby. The Voron cruiser fired. Malik's shuttle twisted violently through exploding plasma bursts that would have vaporized normal aircraft instantly. Warning alarms screamed through command speakers. Impact proximity. Shuttle shields collapsing. Direct hit incoming. Then Malik's voice again. Almost there. The shuttle disappeared beneath the massive Voron ship. For 1 second it vanished entirely from radar. Then 3 bright kinetic signatures launched upward simultaneously. The mining rail cannons fired. The projectiles punched directly into the cruiser's exposed thermal channels. Nothing happened. The command center fell silent. Then the Voron warship began glowing from the inside. Blue light erupted through cracks in its armor. Reactor instability warnings flooded alien communications. Sierra's eyes widened. It's working. The cruiser tried pulling away. Too late. The ship folded inward suddenly like collapsing metal paper. And exploded. The detonation lit Earth's atmosphere blue. Fragments the size of skyscrapers burned across the sky. For the first time since arriving in the solar system, a Voron warship died. Strategic Command erupted into chaos. Cheers. Shouts. Disbelief. Humanity had proven the Empire could bleed. But the victory lasted only seconds. The remaining Voron fleet changed formation immediately. Adapting. Learning. Maya watched new targeting lines appear across Earth. The enemy had stopped underestimating humanity. Massive energy surge detected, an officer shouted. All eyes turned upward. One of the largest Voron command ships moved forward through the formation. Its central weapon began charging. The energy readings climbed rapidly beyond anything previously detected. Admiral Hale's expression darkened instantly. Can we stop that thing? Nobody answered. Because everyone already knew. No. The command ship fired. A beam wider than a city slammed downward toward the Atlantic defense grid. 3 orbital stations vanished instantly. Then the beam continued. Straight into the eastern coastline of North America. The impact shattered entire regions. Power grids failed across thousands of kilometers. Communications collapsed. Shockwaves rolled through cities like earthquakes. Maya nearly lost balance as the underground facility trembled from the distant strike. Somewhere nearby, people had just ceased existing. Millions of them. The reality hit the room like ice water. Earth was losing. Even with one enemy ship destroyed, Earth was losing badly. An officer suddenly turned pale at his station. Captain Reyes. Maya looked over. The officer swallowed hard. We're detecting atmospheric breaches over Raven Mountain. The room froze. More signals appeared instantly. Small, fast, drop ships. Dozens of them descending directly toward the refugee facility. Syrah understood immediately. The survivors, she whispered. The Vorin were not here only to conquer Earth. They had come to finish the hunt. Maya grabbed her rifle from the tactical table. Around her, soldiers did the same. Emergency sirens screamed through the underground complex as lights shifted to deep crimson. Above the mountain, enemy troops were arriving. The first Vorin drop ships punched through the clouds above Raven Mountain like falling blades. Black metallic hulls screamed through the atmosphere, trailing blue fire behind them as anti-aircraft batteries opened up from hidden positions across the surrounding ridges. Missiles streaked upward. 2 drop ships exploded immediately. The rest kept coming. Inside the underground facility, red emergency lights flashed violently through the corridors while alarms echoed off concrete walls. Security teams to defensive sectors. Seal lower access tunnels. Move refugee civilians underground now. Panic surged through the complex. Human soldiers rushed toward combat positions while frightened Lyrathai families were hurried deeper into reinforced shelters beneath the mountain. Maya Reyes sprinted through the central corridor with rifle in hand, boots hammering against concrete floors. Behind her, Captain Malik's victory in orbit had bought humanity something priceless. Proof. The Vorin could be killed. Which meant the Empire had changed tactics immediately. Now they wanted the refugees dead before humans learned anything else. A violent tremor shook the facility. Dust rained from the ceiling. One of the outer defense bunkers had just been destroyed. Maya reached Junction 7 where armed soldiers were fortifying a blast door with portable barricades. Beyond it lay the refugee sector. Syrah stood there already. Calm. Too calm. The translator on her wrist flickered softly. They will target command first, she said. Maya checked her rifle. How do you know? Syrah looked upward toward the mountain above them. Because that is what we would do. A distant explosion rolled through the tunnels. Closer now. The Vorin were inside the perimeter. Gunfire erupted somewhere above. Short bursts. Human weapons. Then screams. Maya felt the entire facility tighten emotionally around the sound. A young soldier near the barricade whispered nervously, "How many are coming?" Nobody answered. Then the lights flickered. The tactical display beside the corridor suddenly activated automatically. Admiral Hale appeared through static from Strategic Command. His face looked exhausted. Behind him, orbital battle reports flashed non-stop. "We intercepted enemy communications," he said quickly. "The Vorin ground assault isn't their primary operation." Maya frowned. "What are they doing?" Hale enlarged a tactical projection. The remaining Vorin fleet had repositioned above Earth's atmosphere. Not attacking randomly anymore. Forming a precise geometric alignment. Syrah stared at the display. Then her expression changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. "The resonance array," she whispered. Hale looked at her sharply. "You know what it is?" Syrah stepped closer to the screen. "The Vorin command ships can synchronize reactor frequencies." Mercer's face went pale nearby. "What happens if they do?" The translator processed slowly. Then answered. "They ignite planetary atmospheres." Silence hit the corridor like a physical force. One officer muttered, "That's impossible." Syrah looked directly at him. "No," she said softly. "It is efficient." The tactical projection updated again. Energy levels across the Vorin fleet continued rising rapidly. Humanity suddenly understood the truth. The orbital strikes had only been preparation. The real weapon was still charging. Maya grabbed the communication console. "How long?" Hale answered immediately. "Maybe 20 minutes. Not enough time."
Not enough ships. Not enough weapons. Not enough anything. The Voron had already won. Then someone spoke quietly behind them. The child. The small Lyrathi child stepped forward from the refugee corridor, clutching a folded drawing against their chest. Maya recognized the picture immediately. Stars. Earth. Two figures holding hands. Human and Lyrathi. The child looked up at Syrah and said something softly in their own language. Syrah froze, then slowly turned toward Maya. What did they say? Syrah's eyes moved toward the tactical display, toward the giant Voron fleet above Earth, then back to Maya. The resonance synchronization. She stopped breathing for a second, then suddenly grabbed the tactical controls. Their reactors must remain perfectly linked, she said rapidly. If even one command ship destabilizes during synchronization. Mercer understood instantly. The entire chain reaction collapses. Maya's pulse spiked. So we hit another reactor. Hale's expression darkened. We don't have another strike craft close enough. Syrah stared at the orbital display intensely, then pointed toward one specific Voron command ship. Its reactor signature pulsed, slightly out of rhythm with the others. Damaged. From Earth's earlier counterattacks. A weakness. Maya understood immediately. You don't need another ship, she said. Everyone looked at her. Maya grabbed the combat headset from the nearest soldier, then opened every remaining military channel on Earth simultaneously. Her voice echoed across bunkers, ships, defense stations, and burning cities around the planet. All units listen carefully, she said. We only get one shot at this. Above Earth, the Voron fleet continued charging the weapon that would erase humanity forever, and humanity prepared one final impossible attack. Earth's final attack lasted only 4 minutes. Later, historians would spend decades trying to explain how humanity survived them. But in the moment, it felt like chaos. Every remaining human defense system fired simultaneously. Missiles launched from hidden silos beneath collapsing cities. Damaged orbital stations emptied their last ammunition reserves. Naval rail cannons fired blindly through clouds lit blue by orbital fire. Humanity unleashed everything it had left, not to destroy the Voron fleet, just to hit one ship. One damaged command vessel drifting slightly outside synchronization range. Inside Strategic Command, alarms screamed nonstop while energy readings climbed toward catastrophic levels. Resonance alignment at 70%. Enemy weapon charge continuing. Orbital casualties exceeding projection thresholds. Maya Reyes stood gripping the tactical console so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Around Earth, thousands of human pilots accelerated directly into impossible odds. They knew most would not survive. They attacked anyway. A damaged fighter squadron from Brazil pierced Voron interceptor lines long enough to overload one enemy shield sector. A lunar defense platform sacrificed itself, ramming a destroyer to open another firing lane. Civilian cargo ships retrofitted with explosives joined the assault beside military vessels. Not because they were ordered to, because humanity had run out of anyone else. The Voron fleet responded mercilessly. Human ships vanished one after another beneath overwhelming firepower. Entire squadrons disappeared from tactical screens in seconds. But the attacks kept coming. Wave after wave. Again. 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 Syrah stared at the display with visible disbelief. They are sacrificing everything. Maya never looked away from the battle. That's what people do, she said quietly, when they decide something matters. Then the damaged Voron command ship took a hit. A single human missile. Tiny compared to the massive vessel, but enough. The ship's weakened reactor flickered violently. For one terrible second, the synchronization pattern across the Voron fleet destabilized. Syrah shouted instantly. Now, Admiral Hale slammed his hand onto the command console. Fire all remaining orbital platforms. Earth obeyed. The surviving defense stations unleashed concentrated fire directly into the unstable command ship. The reactor collapsed. Blue light erupted through the vessel's hull, and the resonance array failed. The effect was immediate. Across orbit, synchronized Voron reactors overloaded out of sequence violently. 3 destroyers lost containment instantly. One exploded. Another tore itself apart under cascading energy failure. The remaining Voron ships broke formation desperately as shockwaves rippled through the fleet. The planetary weapon died before completion. Humanity had stopped it. Strategic command erupted. Some screamed. Some cried. Others simply collapsed into chairs from exhaustion. Maya closed her eyes briefly for the first time in hours. Earth was still alive. Outside the underground facility, the battle above the planet changed instantly. The Voran fleet began retreat maneuvers. Not orderly. Panicked. Human forces pursued them through burning skies, while shattered enemy vessels pulled away from Earth one by one. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Voran Dominion had failed to exterminate a resisting civilization, and the galaxy noticed. Deep beyond Earth's solar system, hidden listening stations intercepted the battle recordings. Encrypted transmissions spread quietly between occupied worlds. Whispers traveled across ancient trade routes long thought dead. The Voran could lose. Entire species saw the footage. Human pilots charging impossible warships. Refugees defended by strangers. A primitive world refusing surrender against overwhelming odds. Hope moved through the galaxy like fire. On mining colonies. Inside prison moons. Across conquered systems, where resistance had died generations earlier. People watched Earth survive. And remember what courage looked like. Back inside Raven Mountain, the small Lyrathi child stood beside Maya near the observation window overlooking the recovering refugee sector. The child pressed one small hand gently against the glass. Above them, burning debris from the orbital battle streaked across Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. The child looked up at Maya, then smiled for the first time since arriving on Earth. A small smile. Fragile, but real. And somewhere far out in the darkness between galaxies, other civilizations began preparing to fight back too. 3 weeks after the Battle of Earth, the fires were still burning in some cities. Entire coastlines remained dark from shattered power grids. Orbital debris continued falling through the atmosphere in controlled burns. Emergency broadcasts still played across half the planet. But humanity was alive. And for many people, that alone still felt impossible. The official casualty numbers were never fully agreed upon. Too many missing. Too many cities damaged beyond recognition. Too many names lost in collapsing systems during the attacks. Yet despite everything, Earth endured. Reconstruction began almost immediately. Human beings had always been strangely talented at rebuilding while still bleeding. Cargo drones crossed ruined skylines, carrying medical supplies. International military forces worked side by side, clearing collapsed districts. Refugee centers opened across every continent for displaced civilians and surviving Lyrathi families alike. For the first time since arriving on Earth, the refugees walked openly beneath the sky, without hiding. Many still looked upward nervously. But the fear was changing now. Slowly. Inside the rebuilt command wing beneath Raven Mountain, Maya Reyes stood beside the massive observation window overlooking the valley, where the alien ship had crashed weeks earlier. The scar remained visible across the earth, a long black wound cutting through the pine forest. Snow had begun falling lightly around it. Quiet, peaceful. Dr. Mercer stepped beside her carrying a tablet, filled with new deep space reports. You should probably see this. Maya took the tablet. Her eyes widened slightly. Dozens of encrypted transmissions had been intercepted across nearby sectors of space. Unknown civilizations, unknown origins, but the messages all carried the same subject line after translation. Earth survived. Mercer leaned against the railing. Looks like your battle became famous. Maya exhaled quietly. No, she said. Humanity became visible. That was different. For centuries humanity had stared upward, believing itself alone. Now the galaxy was staring back, and apparently taking notes. Behind them, the corridor doors opened softly. Syrah entered with the child beside her. The little Lyrathi now wore oversized winter clothing donated by a local Wyoming family. The sleeves still hung too long over those small silver-blue hands. The child looked healthier now, less frightened, more curious. Syrah stopped beside Maya near the window. The council ships have answered, she said through the translator. Maya looked over. What council? Syrah's expression carried something Maya had never seen before. Hope. Other surviving worlds, the translator answered. Species once conquered by the Voran. Mercer straightened immediately. There are organized resistance groups? Syrah nodded slowly. For many years they hid. They believed resistance was impossible. Her eyes moved toward Earth's snowy valley outside the glass. Now they are reconsidering. Maya looked down at the burning scar where the refugee ship had fallen from the sky. One crash, one decision, and suddenly an entire galaxy had changed direction. The child stepped closer to the window. Snowflakes drifted slowly outside beneath pale morning sunlight. The little Lyrithai pressed one hand gently against the glass. Watching, Maya crouched beside them. You like snow? The child looked up curiously, then nodded once. Maya smiled faintly. A simple moment, small enough to disappear beneath the weight of wars and collapsing empires. But somehow it mattered anyway. Outside the mountain, workers continued rebuilding roads through the valley, while human and Lyrithai engineers walked together between construction vehicles. Two species, two survivors, trying to build something after the end of the world. Syrah spoke softly beside her. When we first arrived here, we believed Earth would become another grave. Maya looked out toward the bright winter sky. Above the atmosphere, shattered remains of the Voran fleet still drifted silently through orbit. Proof that even empires could bleed. But it didn't, Maya said quietly. Far beyond Earth, hidden civilizations were already beginning to rise. Resistance networks awakened. Occupied systems whispered rebellion openly for the first time in generations. And somewhere deep within Voran territory, for the first time in centuries, the Empire itself had started to feel afraid. The child beside Maya looked upward through the falling snow toward the stars above Earth, not with fear anymore, with wonder, and in the vast darkness beyond the sky, countless worlds that had forgotten hope slowly began to remember it again.